Eminem once asked, look, if you had one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip? Well, besides the fact that Eminem was clearly suffering from what we call in psychology a scarcity mindset, there are actually a lot of interesting things to dig into on the topic of taking shots in life. It captures our imagination because it dives right into the heart of our human nature, and I think that's perhaps why it resonated so well with so many people. It's very tied into trying to break out of a rut, maybe achieving our potential or living true to our calling. Now, there's an abundance of different complexes at play, from the pressures of society and our ego to equally complicated matters like personal finances and smart economic choices. And on the subject of economic choices, another famous lyric that you might remember states, "No, I don't want no scrub. A scrub is a guy who can't get no love from me," hanging out the passenger's side of his best friend's ride, trying to holler at me. Well, things do change in life, and recently a wise lady on Twitter said that actually, considering the cost of gas prices these days, a scrub hitching a lift is possibly exhibiting smart financial choices compared to the idiot who's owning the car, and this scrub is perfectly worthy of her interest. So anyway, besides making silly jokes about classic bangers from the noughties, we are here on a mission today to help you, the listener, to make the most of your shots in life. So, hello and welcome to the Growth Mindset Psychology Podcast with me, Sam Webster Harris. As always, diving into the science of self-improvement and the philosophy of living a life well lived. But firstly, I do have a big announcement that I am finally launching the Growth Mindset Premium feed, which I have been mentioning for maybe 2 months and not quite getting round to it because I might not be as organized as I'd like to think I am. However, if you now visit the episode or show description, you can subscribe for a simple $5 a month to get unlimited, ad-free access to every single episode, as well as being able to interact with an Ask Me Anything board to get all of your psychology and life questions answered by myself. And there will be at least one exclusive episode a month just for premium members, and perhaps some extra add-ons such as bonus content from guest interviews, or even bonus content from episodes themselves where I had a large 15-minute tangent that I couldn't make into the final script, but I thought was really worth mentioning somewhere. And so for people who are really into the kind of weirder parts of the things my brain does, you might enjoy engaging in those. I will certainly keep expectations low, and I can 100% guarantee you will have ad-free listening and warm, fuzzy feelings for supporting me as a creator, and also access to a community Discord and the Ask Me Anything functionality. But the levels of exclusive content will vary over time, depending on my ability to focus, which is not my strong point. I am certainly looking forward to one day being able to pay a producer to help keep me on schedule. Believe me, if you're interested, the show lost money for its entire lifetime until last month. So, woohoo! Not losing money for once. But as the show is 7 years old, that is maybe not the best metric of success. I don't know. Importantly, I am growing very fast and have some growth goals to hit in terms of listeners and revenue before I can do things like going wild and paying for people to actually help me make the show. So for now, it is just me writing, recording, producing, answering emails, admin, taxes, whatever goes into running a business and a podcast. It's me that's doing it for now. Thus, subscribing to the premium feed would be a huge help, and I would also be delighted to get to know you a little bit better. Now we're going to have a short break before then launching into my framework for making the most of our shots in life, how to build a sustainable flywheel to keep on taking shots, and how we can go about investigating the idea of finding our purpose, all coming up shortly. Right, onto the episode today. I thought, to celebrate the fact that I am launching premium membership and the Ask Me Anything dashboard, that I would revisit a question from a long-time listener and now friend to flaunt to you some of what you could get with the unlimited access to deciding what I write about. I am answering just one question in a very long, in-depth version, though normally the Ask Me Anything will be limited to more like 10 minutes and I will answer a lot of questions in one. But this question has a lot behind it that I also feel gets asked by many people. And I was even talking about the topics I discussed in the episode today with a friend on the phone before I recorded this. Completely unrelated, it just is a very common topic. So the question is from Jamiro, and he asks, my partner, who is 32, left his software career he had been in for 15 years as he is sick of being an employee and living for a paycheck. He wants to figure out what his contribution to the world is and find his inspiration for the moment, but he also feels stuck, like his savings won't last. He feels like he has one shot to make the right decision and he has some anxiety around this. His worst fear is that it won't work out and he'll just have to go back to his desk job. So firstly, great question. And I will lay out a map of how I'm going to be answering this. So if it feels like I'm making a tangent, you'll understand why I'm talking about what I'm talking about. I'm going to follow Simon Sinek's advice of starting with why, then go into the how to approach the situation and build the right mindsets for it, and finally launch into a breakdown of the actual actionable steps of what to do to take the best shots in life, find a way to make the right decision to do something that is the thing that feels purposeful and a useful contribution to the world and something that you enjoy. Now, on to the subject of why. Why do you feel like you only have one shot? Why do you feel like you have this goal? And why do you think you have to make an impact on the world? There's a lot of whys going on here. And firstly, it is a human thing to feel like there is something more within us to give to the world that you haven't yet achieved. And I think we all worry that we'll end up reaching our graves without having done something truly brilliant with our life. If you look at Viktor Frankl's philosophy in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he states that our desire to leave a mark on the world can actually lead to existential anxiety, which ironically is very unhelpful to getting anything done. Yet on the flip side, if we feel like we're just doing the same tasks on repeat without joy, we can be very detached from the life we're living, we can become burnt out and really want to change and perhaps make an impact. But I'm discussing this because I really think it's so worth looking deeper into who you are and what is your why for where you want to be going. If that's starting a business or changing career, what are the things that aren't currently working for you? What's actually in your head when you're saying, I want to achieve something? Is that financial security? Is that creativity in your work that inspires others? Do you just want to be doing work where you're surrounded by nicer people, or you just get to give back directly to people? Or is it like having your name on a best-selling book or a scientific discovery or building a hospital? There's lots of things that you might want to achieve, but often we don't really know what they are as such. We just want to achieve something kind of good. And I think it's worth doing a further assessment of our true core beliefs of what it means for us to lead a good life. Introspect and ask ourselves how much of our expectations of what a good life is down to our own personal interest and curiosity, and how much of our expectation of what a good life is due to things like society, upbringing, and pressures of what we are told looks like a life well lived. I'm being annoying and starting off my answer with lots of questions, I know, but if you really want the right answer, you're going to have to answer those questions for yourself. And once you have a more solid of your own personal why, then you're much more likely to stay motivated on the very hard path of going through big changes in your life to achieve whatever success it is that you've then defined you want to be achieving. And now that we've covered that, we can start looking into how we should be shaping our mindsets to look at this with the healthiest chance of a good outcome for our personal success and mental health. At 32, with 15 years in a career that no longer satisfies him, Jamiro's partner is facing a moment that many of us know too well, the terrifying yet exhilarating feeling of standing at the crossroads of life. While it's very easy to get caught up in the pressures of making every action we take monumental, remember that the beauty of life lies in these small, meaningful steps that we take every day. The happiness of your life is genuinely about those little daily events that make up the span of your life. And those are the things that do most of what makes you happy rather than the big events. Secondly, compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. And even the biggest companies in the world, the greatest changes to the planet, or the world's greatest books happened through a series of very small actions. There's this pressure that we take on from society to be a multimillionaire by our 30s. If we're 40 and haven't done that much with our life, we're like a failure or something. And we look at success like it should be this effortless, instant event, which is so wrong and so fixed mindset in its approach. Because with a growth mindset, improvement isn't instant, it's slow. It's situational, bit by bit, walking the difficult, hard path to get there. And the reason I've explained that is that we can quickly conclude that, firstly, you don't need to panic. You don't need to be a big success by next year, because there is too much anxiety going on in the world. And for the most part, there isn't much worth getting riled up about. Now, finding our passion can be one of those things that people get really freaked out about on a daily basis because they haven't found it. And personally, I'm a big fan of Alan Watts's view on life. He says that the point of a song is for it to be enjoyable. It's not to reach the end of the song. And the point of dancing is to dance. It's not for the result. It's not for some byproduct that comes from the process of dancing. Like, you don't manufacture anything. You just dance for the love of it. And the point of living is to live and enjoy the process of living. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be ambitious. It just means that you can enjoy the process without the anxious pressure to have some expectation on different outcomes. There's this wonderful paradox of success that the more you try to force, the less likely something will happen. If you put untold pressure on yourself to do a good speech, you're going to be nervous and it will show. If you don't actually mind or care what people think of you, but you just turn up and talk about topics that fascinate you with your own internal passion, you can give a really good speech. When we put all this pressure on ourselves to succeed just this one time, like it's our only shot, we're more likely to obsess over the thing, work too hard on something, try and be perfect, which usually leads to burnout and failure. Of course, you should turn up with passion and dedication, but I think there is an art to being more graceful and grateful for the process as you walk through it, rather than anxious about trying to control and force it. I should also mention that it sounds like you are actually at a better point than you might think in life. You have some time to reflect on what you're doing and zoom out without rushing. I mean, having had a long career in software should mean that you're not about to run out of cash instantly, and you have some fallback options, meaning that you're definitely not going to end up in some crisis and that your life's going to be over. There will still be jobs for you if things go wrong and an ability to start something else again. So for me, there's some very important points about approaching the process without so much worry about it. And the other big thing to think about is happiness itself. I think we can be much more mindful about how happiness tends to occur along the length of people's lives. Generally speaking, happiness follows a U-shaped curve where when we're young, we're very happy and carefree. And then we go through the middle of life where we are not happy and carefree. Eventually, when we're old, happiness rises again because we stop worrying about society's definitions of success. We've lived our life and we just got some time to chill out and not worry about stuff. It's the middle period where you are currently, and pretty much 99% of people that listen to the show are in the ages of 18 to 60. And collectively, as a listenership, we can all take a deep breath and remind ourselves to not be too obsessed with achieving the success that we see elsewhere and trying to maximize metrics that we can measure. Things like happiness and contentness often just aren't prioritized in the way that they should be. And wealth as a feeling is much more than just money. Money does funny things to people's heads, but it is basically just an exchange currency for human time to do things for you or to give you things that a human has spent time making. Whether that could be an artist's painting, someone working for you directly, or buying an apple from a supermarket, buying a plane ticket, buying a house, buying a heart surgery. These are all just examples of paying someone or groups of people for their time to give us that service or product. But the question is, how much time of other people do you really need to be buying? How much stuff do you need from other people? And how needy are you as a person? Because the less money you spend, that means the more self-sufficient you are and able to fulfill your own needs. And looking at it like that really makes me think about how we can think about success. Because besides just having more money, we might need more time to play guitar or hang out with our friends, go surfing. I'm definitely talking about things that I like doing, but I'm sure there are things that you would like just from freedom by having the time that don't actually cost money. They just cost your time to go and do them. And you can't pay anyone to do them for you, because you have to be the one reading the book or surfing or knitting, whatever it is you want to do with your freedom. And so anyway, personally, I'd rather be wealthy in contentment and freedom rather than just specifically money, if that means I'm busy and stressed. Big reason why people reach middle age and have a burnout or midlife crisis. They've just taken the first few opportunities that paid them well and realize after spending some time doing it that they have no idea why they're doing it. They're just going through the motions. But I certainly accept that you need to reach a level of money in life first where you have that freedom. But I think we can just be a bit more mindful about the amount of sacrifices we take to get there and how far we keep chasing and go beyond our means. True wealth, at least for me, means having peace of mind, good health, good relationships, and time to do things that you enjoy, which, if your passion is taking shots at big things, at big, hard achievements in life, well, I am now ready to finally dig into the actual framework of taking shots and making them more successful. Sorry for the long prelude, but I think this will really help everything else make more sense now that I'm talking about it. Firstly, I am very critically aware of the fact that you said you're worried this might be your one shot, one opportunity. Just like Eminem, that is a very scarcity mindset framework of looking at it. And I think it's a really false thing to believe, because if you're 32, that isn't very old. Unless you're going to get run over by a bus soon, like you probably have a long life ahead of you. James Dyson, for example, was still broke and quite lost in his mid-40s before he managed to build his first Dyson Hoover. And some people don't find success until they're 70. What's much more important is that the most successful artists, scientists, and entrepreneurs, they are actually very prolific people, and they try lots of ideas and many things. And it's not about one shot, it's about taking many shots. In fact, the biggest predictor of an entrepreneur starting $1 billion business isn't the university they went to, isn't their parents, isn't their skill set or age. It's about how many previous businesses they've started before, even if many of those businesses were failures. The more shots you take, the better you get at taking them. Just like any form of aiming practice with guns or archery, you get a lot better by taking shots. Expecting to be perfect on the first one is very unlikely. And most people have many, many failures before they find success. So I wouldn't be worrying about your one shot, because that's going to feel terrible when you fail. I would be thinking more about how to set yourself up to make lots of shots. That will give you a much greater chance of being successful. And if you're going to be thinking about how to take lots of shots, you should also be thinking about how to set yourself up to enjoy making shots along the way and having failures without feeling anxiety and pressure, without investing all of your future happiness onto this one single shot and making sure that only that thing works out. And of course, without spending all your money on just this one thing, because it's pretty important for your money to not run out and to live a sustainable lifestyle whilst you can take these risky shots that mostly won't pay off. You can de-risk a lot by just having a sustainable side income, making some sacrifices on whether that's keeping your job on part-time or doing some side contracting. If your income is above your levels of outgoing whilst you're taking shots, you can just keep on trying different things endlessly. And that will give you a much greater chance of actually working out what your impact on the world should be, what you're passionate about, because we don't really know these things until we try them. And we often don't have the skills to make the things work until we spend some time doing things badly. This podcast that I run is now 7 years old, and I only went full time on it this year in January because it finally got to the point of being both big enough for me to realize that I could go all in it. And I'd also spent enough time learning how to build a podcast, how to run a podcast, how to not make endless mistakes every episode, and hopefully do a good job at least most of the time. And sure, I did lose money for the first 6 months of the year, but now that I have started to break even and it's still growing, it's something that could genuinely become quite a big thing if I stay dedicated to it. And yes, it is a pure delight for me to work on something that I am passionate about, but I would have run out of money and given up on it long ago if I'd gone all in on this podcast in the first year, because I had no idea how to run a podcast. I didn't have a good idea of what podcast to be running. I just made random stuff up. Like, it totally wouldn't have worked. Now, I'm not saying this to say that you shouldn't take risks. So you should definitely take some risks that maybe won't pay off from your time investment, but you should be prepared that many things you'll try will just take time and won't really pay you back at all until you've learned a bunch of skills in the different areas that you're trying to start things in. And yes, the biggest risk in life is never trying, but the second biggest risk is wiping yourself out in the process so that you can't try again. Like, Warren Buffett's biggest rule in investing is just to never get wiped out. So you should actually be a lot less risky than people maybe claim to be when they're talking about entrepreneurship, because mostly it's not true. It's much more practical and much more likely that you will succeed if you do have a sustainable side income, and it will help you feel a lot more relaxed and chill and less anxious and stressed and able to work on projects with your mind and mental health capable of dealing with them rather than just panic. And yeah, sure, it doesn't sound like the sexy myth of entrepreneurs who risk absolutely everything. But as I said, it's nowhere near as many entrepreneurs quit their jobs or their degrees to start ideas as we maybe think from the headlines. Mark Zuckerberg, for example, deferred his degree to work on Facebook, and he was definitely ready to continue his degree if it didn't work out. Steve Wozniak, who co-founded Apple, didn't leap from the security of his day job into the unknown. He kept his day job for 2 years after Apple launched before finally going full-time on Apple. And his story isn't just about innovation, it's about patience and practicality. If you aren't too sure yet what your true passion is or things you want to do for the world, trying to rush into it and solve and understand everything about yourself, everything about what would work and make the perfect decision is really setting yourself up for failure. Giving yourself the chance to work on different things over time will build your body of experience of what works for you and what you can do well and what works for other people. And that's going to give you that opportunity to slowly iterate towards something that could be a genuinely big achievement. I've certainly tried several different business ideas over the last 10 years. Most of them have failed, but these projects never wiped me out. They never put me at severe financial risk. And I started straight out of university without having an entire career in software development. So now that we've covered the importance of making it sustainable financially to keep taking shots, let's now look at how we can increase the quality of the shots that we take and also make them faster and less expensive, whether that's financially or time-based for us. Because whether you want to take a shot at something like writing a book or starting a business, the more shots you take and the faster you reload before you take another shot, the faster you're going to get there. I'm going to discuss all of that, as well as then going into a framework to help us find our purpose in life after the break, which of course you would never have if you had a premium subscription. But until then, you can feel free to skip the ads. This episode is sponsored by Factor because I love my food and I also love putting time and effort into cooking delicious food. But I don't always have time, and on the nights that we don't have time to cook, what has become a bit of a default for us is often eating pizza, and that isn't ideal. I have been seeking something healthy and equally delicious, and Factor meals are a game changer. with over 35 different meals that can be prepared to suit your needs. So calorie smart or extra protein, vegan, as you wish. They have everything, and their fresh, never frozen meals are ready to eat in 2 minutes and approved by dietitians. So however busy you are, you can still enjoy nutritious, really, really good tasting food. So if you're interested, head to factormeals.com/growthmindset50, or you can use the code growthmindset50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That is code growthmindset50 at factormeals.com/growthmindset50. This episode is sponsored by porkbun.com. If you haven't heard of them, they are not a delicious option for your lunch. They are a provider of domain names who I first heard about from Derek Sivers, who is one of my favorite people. And he loved Pork Bun's prices, their customer support, ease of use. He also found their name kind of fun. Currently, porkbun.com are offering .pro domains for just a single $1 for our listeners. So whether you are a freelancer or consultant, maybe a certified lawyer or digital nomad, if you are an expert, authority, or really, really good at something, you can tell the world with a .pro domain to give an edge of credibility, memorability, and findability. Level up your online presence for only $1 for the first year at porkbun.com/growthmindset24. Or use the link in the description because it's easier to remember. Coupon code is BEAPRO24 without spaces at porkbun.com/growthmindset24, and the link is in the description. In most cases, being a good boss means hiring the right people and getting out of their way. The important part is the crucial element of finding the right people. And that's what LinkedIn is for. It has the tools to help you find the right people faster and for free. It's not just a job board, but a professional network with over 1 billion members now. And many of these people aren't using job board sites, and they might not even be searching for a job, but would be open for the perfect role if someone was to actually tell them about it. So if you aren't looking on LinkedIn, you're probably looking in the wrong place. And some further amazing statistics is that 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring, and 86% of them get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Try posting your job for free at linkedin.com/growth. That's linkedin.com/growth to post your job for free. Like all the best things in life, terms and conditions do apply. You may have heard of the concept of MVP, that's minimum viable product. And I can't tell you how many people hear the basic definition and never actually truly understand it. Like Richard Feynman says, he knows the difference between knowing what a word is and understanding what it means. And generally, I've made the mistake myself of thinking I was building an MVP, but it cost me so much more time and money than it actually needed to. Mostly what you need to do to prove a project is worth doing is usually just talking to lots of customers. We just have this thing around perfection. And even though we know the word minimum in minimal viable product means it's like minimal, not the huge affair, we still think that means a really good app that will delight people, even if we're not like the huge Airbnb multinational company. Yeah, that's like the long run. The short run is still like an app that's great. But we forget that Airbnb started by just listing airbeds on Craigslist. Like, that's super minimum. It's basically free. They proved demand for free just by clicking a few things. Didn't build an app. And it's so easy to get this wrong. Imagine taking years to write a book to find that no one wants to read it. It's so dumb if you could have spent those years testing different ideas to find the book that an audience is gasping for and then write it for them. It's the same for businesses and apps. People always want to build the entire app first, and they do, and they'll find out that no one wants it, and they'll have spent a bunch of money and time, when what they should have done is they should have spent time being scientific about proving what people really want, and they shouldn't have had any agenda of what they wanted people to actually want. They should have been open-minded. And when you can do that, it's a hell of a lot cheaper than spending your years and money building stuff people don't need. So don't start things perfect And the problem is when you think you have one shot, you think you have to do something perfect, but actually you need to do something scrappy with the most minimal version possible. And most business ideas can genuinely be strapped together using things like Discord groups or WhatsApp groups. I know a friend that started a premium fish delivery app that became a really big business, started with just a WhatsApp group of people in London where he would drive a van to a port and bring them fresh fish on the day. That was it. That was just a WhatsApp group and him driving a van. And you can offer services manually to people, deliver the service yourself before you ever turn anything into an app. You may have noticed I'm really against people building apps for no reason. Trust me, it will save you so much headspace. Anyway, what we need to do is test our ideas, understand our customers. We need to find out how they're currently trying to solve their problems if they have them, if the problem really matters to them at all, and if we have some innovation that we can do that will change a behavior and make something 10 times better for the customer. To really get to the bottom of this without falling into all our cognitive biases that try and stop us from learning anything, I would recommend reading the mum test, because humans are agreeable when you talk to them. And if you ask them like, oh, do you like this idea? They're going to say, your idea is nice and lovely. But there's a very big difference between someone saying they like your idea and someone hunting you down to say how amazingly incredible, awesome, and fantastic an idea is and demanding that you give it to them. If you don't have these levels of conviction, it's probably not a good idea to be moving on to building something when instead you could find something else to work on and take another shot. And you can build these MVPs in a few weeks on the side and prove something useful. And I spent years of my life just dating different ideas. The adventure business that I ran, I built just a meetup page for it. I posted a few potential dates for like ski trips, kite surfing trips, and messaged a few friends to try and get a few early customers. And then, I managed to sell them. So I booked out my personal holiday to run the trip. They went okay. So I booked a few more events for the next year without any real cost to myself. And I got to the end of that second year and I'd worked out what I would need to do to grow the business. I worked out all the different things that would go wrong and was like, I would hate to run this business. There was just way too much looking after people, way too many people wanting to be drunk all the time. And I have like a high tolerance for stress, but I also have an introvert side who just likes to have a good amount of time to himself, to be creative, and doing too much managing of people kind of gets to me. But I didn't really know that until I'd started the business and spent some time dating it. When I started it, I was like, I love adventure. I'm always going on adventure. I'm going to love getting paid to go on adventures and have lots of friends with me because I also have an extrovert side that likes being around people. And it just took some time running it to actually understand what my job as the creator of the business would truly be like in reality. I didn't lose any money at all doing it. I went on some holidays with some people and it was nice. But if I'd gone all in on it, quit my job, gone full time, it would have been so much harder. I'd have probably got burnt out. Like if it wasn't working, I'd be panicking about money. If it was working, I'd have been burnt out from the amount of stress doing this job I didn't actually want to do. So either way, I'd have been stressed. But instead, over the course of a year and a half, I built a community of like 60,000 meetup members and decided I didn't want to run it. So I just let other people pay to use my meetup page to advertise to people and accidentally built myself a side hustle, which didn't need so much upkeep and was like, yeah, that's cool. For some strange reason, I deleted that meetup page because I was having an overwhelming amount of email for a while. And that was an odd choice. And I don't know why I did that. But anyway, the point is you can test ideas in ways that don't damage you, that aren't your only shot, and learn about yourself. Learn what are the things you really want to do that you can then put into what might eventually be your bigger shot when you're ready to go full time and take something to the next level. And that leads us on to the last point about our ability to take shots. And this is the obvious but often overlooked element of simply not quitting. Nothing will increase your ability to take shots in life than the ability to keep trying. The two things I've mentioned so far about maintaining your financial security to keep on taking shots and to follow an MVP mindset where you can keep the cost of things minimal and do more of them quickly, both of these things will reduce your chances of getting wiped out and be able to keep going and doing things. But your question did specifically state that you were worried about this being your one shot. And honestly, I think when people look at entrepreneurship, it's a bit like your first romance when you're a teenager. You're like head over heels for this person. And when it inevitably doesn't work out, you're like, oh God, I'll never love again. My life is over. This isn't true. And it turns out you can date again, and you might perhaps be a bit more cautious about it than going completely all in. This is kind of why I spoke about my method of trying different projects as dating ideas, because when you date different people and you date different ideas, you learn so much about yourself and the kinds of ideas or people that would work for you. Sometimes you'll date a person or an idea and you'll instantly know that they're not right for you. Other people you might need to date for a while to really understand what it would be like as a full-time commitment. And once you actually have some experience, you start to really know when something is right. You find the person or the business that matches your needs and interests, and that's when you're ready to truly dedicate yourself. But you have to remember, to get there, you have to accept and embrace the failures along the way. No one in the Western Hemisphere expects their kids to marry the first person that they date, even if the kid themselves thinks they're going to get married with this first person. We intuitively understand that failure is just a helpful part of the process. Sure, it hurts, but you pick yourself up and you start again. Now, if we have a very negative mindset towards failure, that leads to frustration at the people we date or the ideas that we try that end up wasting our time and don't go to plan. But if you can reframe this as a positive event and you can enjoy the failures for the beauty of the process and the lessons that you learn from them, then as I said earlier, you can go through life more gracefully without trying to force it to be something that it isn't. You can appreciate it for what it is. You can enjoy the hard moments and take in the unique contribution to the story of your life as it happens without feeling like you're stuck in a rut. Because imagine if you dated one person, it didn't work out, you were like, I'm never dating again. That would be madness. You know that if you do keep going and you keep on dating people and you work on yourself, it will lead to success. And it's the same with business and trying different shots in life. You don't know the route that it will take, but we may as well enjoy the view as we go along instead of trying to race as fast as possible just to be at the end. Again, as Alan Watts says, life is for living. It's not for rushing towards stuff or running away from other things. As they say, success is getting knocked down 7 times and getting back up 8 times. And I really like that phrase because it's just so true. And I think that covers everything I want to say around how to take better shots and be less likely to run out of money and ultimately reach success. And now that we've covered that, we should inevitably talk about finding purpose, because the question asked about achieving your greater purpose in life. I do think there is an issue in society where we have purpose and passion as these very idealized things that we should be getting perfect in our lives. And once we do, then we'll be abundantly happy. And it's very fairy tale unicorns. And it's not helped by half the podcasters out there who will tell you to manifest your dreams by believing in yourself, or the other people that are saying you should go into full on monk mode and turn yourself into a machine who just reaches some greater glory through strenuous, hard, mental, muscly, difficult stuff. And I think these things are all rather silly. Ultimately, if you want a pony, you do have to shovel shit. And when I was an entrepreneur, I did notice that nearly everyone around me was incredibly stressed. And I just had no aspiration to be that stressed. On Instagram, we do see this idolized version of success. There's fast cars, nice houses, and the reality is less sexy. Every difficult thing is by definition difficult. So trying to find your purpose in life is about finding the pain, finding the difficult that, at least for you, is not as bad as it is for other people. On my podcast, I don't like having to edit the show week in, week out. Sometimes I enjoy it, but it's a bit of a pain, especially because I often mess it up. I don't like sticking to timelines, or more to the point, I'm terrible at it. And it's not my favorite thing to be doing all the admin, sales, marketing, email, and also the fact that I have no one to talk to and no one else will take any responsibility for if I'm not having a good day on making things happen. These things suck. But I put up with all of those elements because I do love writing things I'm interested in writing about. I love researching psychology. and having the freedom to work on my own schedule without any calls from where I want. And I have tried a bunch of different things to get here. And to be honest, I wouldn't say what I'm doing is like my true purpose in life. I wasn't built to run this show. There wasn't some like ordained Sam must run the growth mindset podcast. Carol Dweck did not bless me. I just started it because I felt like it randomly. And quite often I feel like maybe I shouldn't be running it because I'm not Carol Dweck. But that is definitely a tangent. The point is that I'm doing something that feels like a useful stride intuitively in the right direction for the path of my life for now, and that I'm building knowledge and life lessons for myself that I can take forwards into the next decade that will also help whatever I do later in life, whilst I just enjoy living my life at the moment. And it's not like an easy breeze, and nothing will be. Everything in life has a price, and we only feel pleasure because we can feel pain. The delight of achieving things is relative to the pain and effort to get there. If you could click your fingers and then be on the moon, then no one would have given a rat's ass about Neil Armstrong walking on the moon, because anyone could do it by clicking their fingers. So why would you care Neil Armstrong was there? The reason we care is it was really difficult. And to be honest, when you think about the fact that it was over 50 years ago, we're now currently unable to go to the moon, it kind of blows your brain just how difficult it was. And believe me, there was so many chuffed people about the fact they'd managed to get a man to the moon. There was a lot of contentment and a lot of high fives because it was difficult. Now, the reason I'm saying is that people expect to find their passion and their purpose, and that they'll then suddenly spend the rest of their life in this blissful state of ease. And sadly, that is really untrue. It is going to be difficult, and I have probably made that point. But the good thing is that we can have more fun doing difficult things if we follow our curiosity. And going to the moon was difficult, but people were like, I wonder what it's like to go on the moon. That's curious. They followed it, and it was pretty cool that they pursued their interests and their passions for the sheer hell of it. Dance is for dancing. Life is for living. So try stuff that you think you will enjoy, that you reckon might fit into your zone of excellence, might be so useful that perhaps some people give you money, and just see what happens. If it doesn't work, you learn something and you can try again. And that's fine. You just haven't found the thing that's going to be your success yet. And I'm sorry that I haven't given you a blueprint to make this one shot work, because sadly that doesn't exist. This episode has been a blueprint on how to make your success inevitable, but accepting that it's not going to be instant and going to take growth mindset and a lot of failure to get there. Which, if you're going to send your question into the Growth Mindset podcast, I guess in hindsight feels kind of obvious. But I do think a lot of people struggle with this question. So glad you asked, and I think it was really worth a long episode to talk about it. So to summarize, ask yourself why you want to do something, and if you have any of society's expectations upon you versus following your own curiosities, then think about how you want to show up and your own personal definitions of success and wealth that use metrics that really matter to you personally, rather than following easily identifiable metrics like money, which we usually compare ourselves using. Then, of course, when you start taking shots, remember to be ready to deal with failures, and that you're going to have to take lots of shots at different ideas for projects or careers that you might try so that you can inevitably find something that works for you. As James P. Carr says, we should be playing infinite games that we can play for the love of playing them, instead of trying to win finite games involving comparison against others, because life is long and the race is only with yourself. So on that, I am trying the whole premium feed thing because I could be making more money and will need to if I am to keep running this project for another 5 years. So your support would be much appreciated. Thank you. But of course, you don't have to pay. Podcasts will always be free. And I certainly had lots of fun doing this. And you can always help the show by sharing it with a friend. And that's by far the biggest way that we grow, which of course impacts revenue and my ability to keep running it. So if you do know anyone who is keen to do their own project and take a big shot, well, please send them this episode. Otherwise, stay safe, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening.
Go you!
Your consistency to reach the end of an episode is legendary.
My hero!
But when we learn things, it's important to reflect. So I politely invite you to take a pause, rifle through the biggest ideas you just heard. So here's your opportunity to hit pause and have a think. Okay, did you wrestle with some insights? Information doesn't stick when we race from one podcast to the next without using our brain to play with the knowledge. So here's another go at a pause. Alrighty, I'll let you off to continue with your life now. If you have any ideas or feedback for the show, I'm always interested to hear from you.
You're the best!
And other than that, please stay curious. Curious. Quote. Smiling for no reason.
Hi, I'm Alexis Ohanian. You may know me as one of the co-founders of Reddit, but more recently, a large part of my identity is being a father to my wonderful daughters. In my podcast, Business Dad, I hope to open the conversation about working parents a bit. You'll get to hear from a wide range of business dads, from Rainn Wilson and Guy Raz to Todd Carmichael and Shane Battier, to find out how they balance being a dad with a successful career. Business Dad is available now, so be sure to listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.